What if the most powerful thing ever tested for preventing Alzheimer's disease was not a drug, not a diet, and not a single hour at the gym, but a simple video game you could play on your computer tonight? I know how that sounds, but I need you to hear this one out, because what I'm about to show you just came out of Johns Hopkins, was funded by the National Institutes of Health, and even the lead researcher said she was not expecting these results. Nearly 3,000 older adults were followed for 20 years. 20 years. Some trained their memory, some trained their reasoning. One group played a specific type of brain speed game, and 2 decades later, that last group was 25% less likely to be diagnosed with dementia or Alzheimer's disease. This is a gold standard randomized controlled trial. The same level of evidence used to approve medication, showing that a 10-hour brain exercise cut dementia risk for 20 years. And almost nobody is talking about the most important detail in these results. Stay with me because I'm going to give you that detail, and I'm going to tell you exactly what to do with it. Before we get into this, drop a comment right now. Tell me your age and where you're watching from. I read every single one. Alright, let's go. The study is called the ACTIVE Trial, Advanced Cognitive Training for Independent and Vital Elderly. It started in 1998, enrolled 2,802 adults aged 65 and older, all living independently, none with signs of cognitive decline. They came from 6 communities across the country. A quarter of participants were minority, which means these results apply to the whole American population. Participants were split into 4 groups: memory training, reasoning training, speed of processing training, and a control group that did nothing. 2 sessions a week, about an hour each for 5 to 6 weeks. Then booster sessions 1 year later, and again at the 3-year mark. At 20 years out, researchers pulled Medicare records to see who had been diagnosed with dementia, and what they found stopped them cold. The memory training group showed some benefit, but not enough to matter statistically. Same with reasoning. Only the speed training group, specifically the ones who came back for those booster sessions, showed a clean, definitive 25% reduction in dementia risk. The lead author, Marilyn Albert from Johns Hopkins, said on the record that this was not at all what she expected. A scientist of her caliber saying that is not nothing. So why did speed training work when memory and reasoning training did not? This is where it gets genuinely interesting. Memory and reasoning training use what scientists call explicit learning. You study a strategy consciously. You memorize a technique. You apply a rule. The problem is that explicit learning fades. It's like writing something on a notepad that you later lose. Speed training works through implicit learning, the kind that happens when you learn to ride a bicycle. You cannot explain in words how you balance, you just do it. That skill lives somewhere deeper in the brain, encoded automatically, and it does not fade the same way. More durable, more resilient over time. Implicit learning engages entirely different brain systems, and that may explain why speed training produced protection that lasted 20 years when memory work alone did not. Now let me tell you what the exercise actually looks like, because this is the part that surprises people. You sit at a computer. On the screen, you quickly identify one of 2 vehicles, a car or a truck in the center of your vision. At the same time, a road sign flashes briefly in your peripheral vision at the very edge of the screen. You have to catch both things at once. And as you get faster and more accurate, the images disappear quicker, the distractors multiply, and the sign moves further toward the edge. It looks like a driving game, and that is not a coincidence. Think about what actually happens when you drive. You're watching the road ahead, checking the mirrors, aware of someone stepping off the curb, noticing the light turning red. Your brain is processing multiple streams simultaneously at high speed. That is divided attention. That is exactly what this game trains. By pushing the brain to handle faster, more complex visual tasks, the training triggers neuroplasticity, the brain physically building and reinforcing connections. Those structural changes appear to create a buffer against the damage Alzheimer's eventually causes. Before the most important part of this video, if this is useful to you, hit that like button and subscribe, so you do not miss what is coming next. Now here is the piece the headlines missed. The 25% reduction only happened in people who did the original training and then came back for booster sessions. People who did the initial training alone, without boosters, did not show a meaningful result at 20 years. The boosters were not optional, they were the mechanism. 4 one-hour sessions about 12 months after the initial training, then 4 more sessions at the 3-year mark, that's it. Less than 10 additional hours over 3 years. But without them, the protection did not hold. Marilyn Albert explained that each booster session independently added to the risk reduction. More reinforcement meant deeper protection. Think of it the same way you think about a vaccine. The first dose primes the system, the boosters lock it in. So what do you actually do? The speed of processing training from the ACTIVE study is available right now through a platform called BrainH. George Kovach, a 74-year-old from Virginia, has been using BrainHQ for over a decade. He said these exercises are hard, but you get better at them. He described it like doing sit-ups for his brain. You do not need to do what he did. The study tells us that 10 hours of initial training over 5 to 6 weeks, 2 sessions per week, is the starting point. Then 4 hours of booster sessions 1 year later. Then 4 more hours the following year. That protocol, less than 25 hours total over 3 years, is what produced the 25% reduction in dementia risk. That held for 2 full decades. There is a follow-up study underway right now called PACT, Preventing Alzheimer's with Cognitive Training, with 7,500 enrolled participants. Most researchers believe more training will produce even greater protection. Results expected around 2028, but you should not wait for 2028. What we have right now is the strongest evidence ever published, showing that a practical, affordable brain exercise can meaningfully reduce your risk of Alzheimer's disease. Not in a lab animal, not in a theory. In nearly 3,000 real people, tracked for 20 years in a randomized controlled trial, funded by the federal government. The time invested is genuinely small compared to what is at stake. 10 hours over 5 weeks to start. A handful of sessions per year after that. Most people spend more time than that watching TV in a single week. Aging is not just something that happens to you. There are things you can actually do, and now you know one of them. Tell me in the comments, have you noticed your reaction speed slowing down in the last few years? Maybe behind the wheel or following a fast conversation? Be honest. Your answer might be exactly what someone else watching this needed to hear. Thank you for being here.